selections from Solstice. At this point, I will open it up to any questions people might have. It can be about the writing process, it can be about Seattle, it can be about soccer, the World Cup coming up. Anyone else? Yes.
How come you write under a different name?
Oh, question. How come I write under a different name? Significance of the name is Catherine's my middle name, and Christie is my mom's maiden name. My sister goes by Lee Christie as her stage name, and I'm kind of copying her.
Just about your writing process, you said you wrote the original draft 12 years ago and then you revised it. Are you like a steady writer, or are you like this kind of episodic person who jumps in every once in a while?
Yeah, no, steady, for sure. I've written since college, so I've been out of college. What have we been out of college? I'm looking at her. 17 years. Yeah, I've written probably 6 novels in that time. So I've been really steady. And the first 2 right after college really sucked. This was number 3. This was better. Just getting there. So yeah. And then I had a historical novel. Historical fiction takes so long to write because, I mean, you have to check every single sentence and every bit of dialogue. Everything has to... So that took me about 3.5 years. I wrote a historical novel that I haven't sought publication for either. I'm not super happy with it. So I wanted to seek publication for something that I was really happy with first, because you can't take back the first novel.
Change your name again.
I could change it. Except for the people. Did you have a question?
Yes. From the time you picked this up again and started writing, how long did it take you to finish it?
The question is, from the time I picked up the novel again and started rewriting, how long did it take? It took probably about 8 months to revise. What I was doing mostly was cutting. The first draft had 110,000 words in it. This draft has 80,000. So I cut a lot. My kind of writing style is throw everything in and the kitchen sink, and it's way too much, way too much. So it was good to have a target to cut. And the first draft too, just for fun, I made it like 6 viewpoint characters, all in first draft, in present tense. So I had a little bit of, make it slightly more traditional, realist, and more publishable. I had some of that work to do. So. Yeah.
How much personal experience is there that you brought into your book?
How much personal experience, she asked, is there in the book? I think every character I write about has a little bit of me in them. But mostly I aim for composites, and often I'll wake up in the morning and there'll be a voice just already there for a character. So there's not a lot of me. There's not a lot of my family. There's not a lot of my personal history. I borrow from people. A woman I dated in college, her brother died of AIDS, and so I borrowed. But their family looks nothing like that family. I really tried to shift. But so I take from all my friends' lives and steal and put them in. But hopefully they don't recognize them. It's my attempt anyway. So there is definitely some personal stuff, but mostly like the soccer scenes, where like Emily's like, oh, I'm totally focused and tunnel vision, and that's really personal. Things like that you can tell somebody experienced at one point. Yeah.
So then how do you do things like setting, like the apartment Camelot across from the zoo?
That exists, and I live,
actually, I knew someone was in it.
Oh, really? Well,
can they hear the animals?
I've never actually, I had a friend who lived right down the block from there, and we could hear the animals, definitely. The birds especially. The birds would make these piercing cries, and the first time I heard it, I was over at my friend's house, and it was evening, and we heard this shrieking, and it was somewhere in the windows room, and we're like, what the hell is that? Like freaking, like, oh my. And then we realized, oh, it's the zoo across the street. So I haven't actually been inside Camelot, but I rode my bike past there all the time, and I love the idea of a building named Camelot. Sorry, it's
Publishing house. So talk to us a little bit about your experience or advice you would give to those of us that are writers and Are you in favor
Yeah.
of self-publishing?
I think self-publishing is a great option. What I've found with, and this is my first novel, so I've been in the lesbian fiction community officially for about a year since they accepted it and it went through the whole rounds. And there's a lot of activity online. And so the non-writers are reviewing the fiction. There are people who just absolutely love reading these books because they can't find representations of themselves anyplace else in the culture. And so, except for the L word,
No
but
bookstore carrying it.
yeah, and no bookstores, although apparently Barnes and Nobles in Seattle has an entire shelf. And it's a love story. It's also a coming out story. I changed some of the things to fit. So for example, Emily, the younger person, goes out and drinks a lot in the very first draft of this, because that's what I was doing when I was her age in Seattle. We were down drinking all the time, Sorry, Mom. I didn't drive home, I promise. But it was, we were doing a lot of that, and what I found from the publisher was they asked me to change that aspect because there has historically been a problem with alcoholism within the gay and lesbian community based on, the lack of visibility and staying at home and drinking. And so they asked me to change that, and I was happy to change that. They also asked me to take out some pot references, which, if you've spent time with 20-somethings in Seattle, you know that pot's very popular there.
And everywhere else.
And everywhere else. But yeah, it's a big part of the Seattle culture, which is why Seattle, I think, always has a lot of people pushing for marijuana legalization. So they asked me to remove that as well. And those were things that I didn't feel were intrinsic to the story. And I thought, hey, if you want to publish it, great. So it's definitely a matter of fitting yourself into the mold, I think. Bella Books, again, and Bold Strokes Books, I only sent one letter, but that's not the usual thing. Like, I specifically targeted this at them. I read the books ahead of time. I knew that they may not like it because it's in first person, and most of the books they publish are in third person and follow kind of a pretty strict formula. And so I tried to formalize it a little bit, as much as I felt comfortable with the story. But again, I was writing this because I wanted to write about my experience and the experience of people I knew and friends I knew. But I also did want to get it published. So when I went through the revision process, I tried to conform it to the existing market. Now, people who don't want to conform to the existing market, self-publishing is great. And I just read an article in Publishers Weekly that says mid-2012 to late 2012 is the end of the publishing world as we know it. Reminds me of Mark Twain. It might be a little, ahead of the gate there. But so I think self-publishing and print on demand are going to become much more active. And it's a matter of hooking up with people online, readers online, that makes self-publishing possible. So, yeah.
What do you like to read when you're...
I like to read everything. I love historical fiction. I love contemporary fiction. I love first-person books. I mean, first-person is such an unreliable narrator, but I love them. I feel like I connect. That's why I write a lot in first-person. I think it's probably a generational thing as well. I read history, I read fiction, I read travel. I have, as my partner will tell you, I have stacks of books, and I'm reading like lots of them at the same time. And I don't finish everything, and yeah. So, love Village books. I love the used books. I'm not supposed to say that.